Hi everyone, I'm Mike from Aegis Moto Adventures. Today I'm going to be working on a custom part for my Z, the Yamaha XT250. I'll be working in the garage, so let me show you what we're going to be working on today. While running the Transamerica Trail, Sherry had a little incident with one of her bags, either due to it being strapped too loosely or just from vibration. The bag slid off to the side here and got on top of this muffler here, and it burnt through the bag. So we lost a dry bag, a compression bag, and a sleeping bag from that incident. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of aluminum here and I'm going to make an extension for the back rack that will also double as a guard against any bag sitting against that muffler again, so that we don't lose any more gear. The first order of business is going to be to lay out the mounting holes on this piece here that'll match up to the holes on the existing back rack on the Yamaha XT250. Once I get those laid out, then I'll be able to drill those. So I'll go for a center line here, and then off of that center line I can get the 4 holes put on there. The piece of aluminum that I'm using is 5052 grade, and it is 8 inches wide by 16 inches long, and it's about 3/16 of an inch thick. So it'll make a nice heavy-duty plate. I've gone ahead and measured the bike and found the first initial holes that I want to locate to be 13/16 from center to center, and I want to bring those in 3/4 of an inch from this edge here. So I'll go ahead and get those holes laid out and center punch them. I brought the piece out into the sun here so that I can get a better video of it, but I went ahead and used a scribe and marked all the locations of my 4 holes, and then went ahead and used a center punch to give the bit the ability to stay centered on the hole so I don't drift on my drills. So now I'm ready to drill it. Well, now I have my holes bored and countersunk to accept some flathead screws. So the next thing to do will be for me to round over these corners here so there's no sharp edges, and get this piece sanded up and ready for paint. What I've done is just used a flat washer and scribed around its radius here so that I know how much to knock off the corners. If I was at Roy's house, he has that beautiful belt sander that's a floor model, and I'd make quick work of this. But here at my house, I'm going to have to use just a handheld belt sander to go ahead and sand these corners off. Well, the sun is going down here, but I have the plate all sanded up, and it feels really good. It's ready for paint, but I'll do that tomorrow when it's brighter out so I can see better. The nice part about working with aluminum is that you can use a lot of hand tools that you would have at home, sanders. It's actually a metal that you can work with and do a pretty good job with it. So this plate is ready for paint, and I'll see you folks tomorrow. Well, I have the part hanging up on my painting hooks now. I'll get the lacquer thinner out here and get it wiped off real good so that it'll accept the paint. And I'll give it a shot of some of that etching primer. And I'll probably do that twice this time around because this is going to have a lot of heavy use on it with the bags going on and off it. So I'll give it an extra shot of primer. Well, I have one coat of the etching primer on the piece. I'll let that dry all day, and then tonight I'll hit it with another shot. I always do this etching primer outside every time I mention that I use etching primer. I make sure I'm upwind and I do it outside so that there's plenty of fresh air and you don't inhale any of the etching primer. That stuff's pretty nasty. It has been 10 days now since I started this project. I put 2 coats of etching primer on the piece, 3 coats of gloss black, and now 5 coats of flat black. And I'll explain that just a little bit. And in that it's commonly accepted that gloss paint is a little bit more durable than the flat or satin paints. And so if you want the look of the matte black but want the durability of the gloss paint, just undercoat it with the gloss paint and then paint over the top of that with your flat, and you'll get the benefits of both. I wanted to give you some helpful tips on using a rattle can to spray paint your parts. It's been my experience, a trick that I learned from Roy, that if you clean off the part using lacquer thinner or a similar product ahead of time, it gets all the oils off of that product and makes the paint adhere better. Tip number 2, once you've cleaned the part off, never handle it again. Always use nitrile or latex gloves while you're painting the product. Tip number 3, I've become a big fan of etching primer for bare metals. I still use the rust colored or red colored primer for rusted metals, but for bare metals, especially aluminum, it's an absolute must. Use the etching primer. And tip number 4, never ever spray paint your part in 20-mile-an-hour winds like I did. It's really hard to control the spray. Over the years, I've collected an assortment of screws, and especially since I moved here to Florida, in stainless steel. And so I had all the hardware I needed to attach that plate to Meisy, and they happen to be safety screws. It's just what I had on hand. But they were too long, so I used a hacksaw to cut them off. Now I need to turn the ends on the grinder and grind the threads down so it'll accept the nut again. And then I'll be able to install the plate on Meisy. Here's a little helpful tip for you. On these front screws here, I was having a hard time getting the nut and washers to line up because there's not enough space to really put my fingers in between here to get these attached. And so what I did is I took a piece of black electrician's tape, and taped around the end of the wrench here, and then put the nylon lock nut on there. And then I'm also using some internal thread, so I have a double safety feature, internal thread locking washer, and then a flat washer so that it doesn't chew up the bike. So I was able to put that and slide this underneath here and get everything lined up with a pick, and then go ahead and tighten it down. Otherwise, I'd have never been able to get that in there very easily. Well, this project is complete. I've got all the screws tightened down now. Makes a nice little plate to set her top bag on. And you can see here, it's going to give plenty of clearance for the muffler so that she doesn't burn up another bag here, which is what we were after. So this turned out really nice, I think. Well, hopefully you like this video that I did on making a aluminum plate to put on Meisy for her top bag luggage. If you did, please give it the big thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Hey, we'll see you in the next video.